Now to further show what I'm talking about when it comes to very thin leather versus the thick stuff, you'll see that there's a little slit in this piece of 7-ounce leather right there. And it's what? See? Doesn't take a whole lot, right? Alright, so actually there's already a slit in it. See that? There's a slit in this one. Okay. Let's put a little bit more of a slit in it. Let's really get it going. Enough said. Enough said. Justin, will you teach us how to make a belt? I get this question all the time, and the answer to that is yes. I will absolutely teach you how to build a belt. A belt is one of the simplest items you can make, but one of the most frustrating items you can make. And the reason it's frustrating is because you have to be able to read your leather. So that way you know, okay, is this belt going to be wrinkly, just full of nasty, gnarly wrinkles? Is it going to be thin in this spot and thick in this spot? Those are the things that you have to take into consideration when building a belt. Very, very frustrating thing to build. And it's really funny because, you know, another thing when it comes to belts is I've seen when I started making my ring belts, I've seen an explosion of ring belts on the scene. I'm not the first person to make ring belts, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about in the community that I'm involved in. But I've seen other people, other websites. Let's just put that right out there. And these particular websites would offer ring belts, and they would pass them off, or they are passing them off as heavy-duty ring belts. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled. Let me show you something. The ring belts I make are made out of 10-ounce leather. See that? That is roughly 1/4 inch thick. The ring belts that are being passed off on some very popular websites are 7-ounce leather. See the difference? Do you want your belt made out of paper thin leather? Or do you want your belt made out of something thick? Don't be fooled, people. These websites are the same people that will take another person's product, put their logo on it, and call it their own. So don't think that they have your best interest in mind. The only thing that they have in mind is making money off of you. Now, with me, I've often said that I want to be the very first business that does everything ethically. So you know that I care about you because, well, I'm going to show you how to build the damn thing. Now when it comes to making a belt, you have several options. You can actually buy full hides and use one of these, which is called a strap cutter, to strip your leather belts off. The problem with this is these hides are extremely expensive if you're only wanting to make one belt blank. And let's just say, for example, you're wanting to make multiple belts. It's still a pain in the ass because of the fact that, well, these are cows, okay? Cows get into barbed wire, they get into all kinds of stuff. They're not very intelligent animals. Nor do we keep our cattle in the best of conditions before they are slaughtered. So oftentimes you're going to find just not very good sections on your leather. And a lot of times the leather won't be long enough to make your belts out of. Or you might have a section that's really good and then you go to cut another belt and it's a piece of crap. Then you go to cut another belt and it's fine. Then you go to cut another belt and it's a piece of crap. Belts, like I said, are very frustrating. Your easiest option is to buy pre-cut belt blanks like this. And again, these can be very frustrating because you have to pick and choose. Tandies, they're, again, they are not looking out for your best interest. They are going to put out these strips, whether they're pieces of shit or whether they're nice, good pieces of leather. They're going to put them out for you to buy no matter what. And so you have to watch for things like, see this real thin spot here, and then it gradually gets thicker. Well, what's going to happen? See how it creases right there? You don't want that in a belt, because that's going to put this real nasty, gnarly wrinkle in there. Now, some people aren't going to care what their belts look like, especially if they're a ring belt, an outdoor belt. They don't really care. I do, though. I want to give you guys only the best. And if I have a spot that's going to wrinkle, I'm not going to give that to you. I'm not going to make a belt blank out of this here because of that, plain and simple. I can still utilize this belt blank for other things, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and get rid of this one, because that one's not an option right now. And let's take a look at these other ones. Let's see if we can find a belt blank in here that's going to work. Okay, so I'm looking at this one. Let's start with this flesh side. First and foremost, Tandy, damn it, stop putting stickers on this. You go to try to take this off, it leaves adhesive behind, and it doesn't take dye. You people do this for a living. You don't know that? Stop it. Again, see these scars right here? That will cause major wrinkling. I don't necessarily care here because we can use this top section as the very front of our belt, and we can disguise all these adhesive marks and everything else, so that way they're never seen and never become a big nasty eyesore. Looking at the rest of the belt, looks fine up until I get to this section here. See how fuzzy and hairy it is? Fuzzy, hairy spots like this, when it comes to burnishing, is going to be a little bit more difficult, because this section here is going to suck up water like a sponge, and it's going to be floppy, nasty mess. But if I flip it around to the smooth side and kind of roll it around, I can see that there's going to be no wrinkling, but I can still see that it's going to fold a little awkward right here. So again, this is not going to be the best belt blanks out there, but still will work. Now this one, well, this one's not an option because we've already cut the nasty part off. So now it comes down to, do I have a belt blank that's going to work? I have, let's see, one more. Let's pull it out and see what we got. Okay, now, just glancing at this belt, I always look at the flesh side first. That's where your big problems come up, is your flesh side. Okay, we have a little bit of a wrinkly problem right here, which we can use as the top of our belt, no big deal. Okay, there's another little fuzzy part, which is, damn it, see, it's gonna, belts. Belts, belts, belts. All right, so I guess we're left with this one here. We're going to try to do our best with this one here. Now, since we're working with a 1.5 inch wide belt, we're going to use a 1.5 inch wide ring as well. Don't go cheap on these things, guys. Okay, you can get solid brass ones, which are never going to break, or you can get some really cheap, flimsy ones that actually have a gap in the middle of them. So if you put enough force, they're going to either break or bend, depending on how they were tempered and everything else. But these are not going to break. They're solid brass. They're expensive, don't get me wrong, especially if you don't have an account with Tandy's or any of the other companies that sell them. They can be $3, $4 a piece, if I remember correctly. So now we need to figure out where we're going to put our ring and everything. That is completely up to you. As what I have done is I have made a template to where I can just mark my holes, fold it over, and I know that's exactly where I need to be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay this out. I'm going to lay out my holes, and you will get an idea of what it is that I'm going to do as I go further into this build.
Okay.
Okay. What are you doing, kiddo? Well, careful. You gotta turn it, the drill press has got to be on before you can drill a hole, darling. But I'd rather you not turn that on and drill a hole through that block of wood.
Why doesn't it have to be on for this?
What?
Why doesn't it have to be on for this one?
Well, because it's got a small drill bit in it. That drill bit's so tiny that it's going to poke right through that cardboard and not be a problem. But the bit that was in the drill press is a 1/4 inch bit, so it wouldn't do that. So now all my basic holes are lined out, and we're going to go back and we're going to actually clean those up, make sure everything's straight. Love you. You guys have a good day. Back when I first made this template, I wasn't quite as accurate as what I like to be these days. These days, I've learned to, slow down and make sure everything is perfectly lined up. It's just going to save you time and frustrations. Someday I'm going to go back and make a template that doesn't require any further thought process, and that you just literally lay it out, mark your holes, and go. Alright, so these are going to be my stitch rows, and now I need to make sure that my center post holes are actually center. Okay, they are. Now this item here, this is actually made to punch all the way through your leather to create your hole. If you want to use that to create your hole, by all means do. I do something that's a little bit different. Sometimes I use this to create my holes, but most of the time nowadays I don't. I actually combine modern methods with old school methods, and it will create a stitch that looks just like traditional stitching, but with half of the headache. Now you can round this off if you want, square, leave it square, do whatever you want. I kind of just take the ears off. Kind of like that look. It's not necessarily squared off, but it's not round. It's quick. It's easy to do. And it will just make it look better. So now we have a basic idea as to where our ring is going to go. So our ring is going to sit right about there in between these two holes. So if now is what we need to do is we need to determine how long this belt is supposed to be. If you need to determine how long your ring belt needs to be, you need to take your current belt, your normal belt that you wear every day, stretch it out. Measure it tip to tip, the tip of your belt buckle all the way to the tip of your end of the belt. Let's say that you find that that is 50 inches, okay? You need to add a minimum of 10 inches to your ring belt. I like to go anywhere between 10 to 15 inches additional length. So let's say that this customer here has a 50-inch belt. I am going to make a 60 to 65-inch ring belt. This particular ring belt is going to be a 60-inch ring belt. 60 inches is literally the average size for a ring belt. The majority of people will be able to utilize a 60-inch ring belt unless you're a larger gentleman or someone that's extremely skinny. At that point, you can trim a little bit off, but definitely make sure you measure your current belt tip to tip, add 10 to 15 inches, you will be fine. So we've got it all measured out. Now we need to remove our excess. Now, you can do things like you could put your ring on here, okay, and you could take your pen and make an outline, and that's going to give you a nice rounded look. You can do that with this ring. You can do it with a bowl that you use for cereal. Anything that's round you can put on there and make a nice round contour. Or you can invest in one of these. These are expensive, okay? These things right here are definitely expensive. But if you plan on making a lot of belts, it's a good investment. I think these damn things are close to 50 bucks. They may have gone down a little bit, but it seems like they range between $30 and $60. It's kind of ridiculous, really, but and they can be a little finicky when it comes to lining them up. They're not made the best, let's just put it that way. One side will creep or snug up on your belt while the other side doesn't. It's kind of hard to explain what I'm talking about. You just have to see it. All right, camera's getting ready to shake because I do not cater to the camera with the Wolf Custom Shop series because it's all about getting it done quickly to get these items out to my customers. Now after you cut off your scrap, look at it. Is this going to be worth anything or not? Well, it's long enough that I could flop this over and use it as a belt loop on a belt pouch or something along those lines. So yes, I'm going to keep this. Now before we actually punch these holes, let me explain something to you guys real quick. If I ever get criticism on my work, it's usually from how I create my holes, because I will actually use a drill bit. A lot of people will say that this isn't the strongest method or the best method or something along those lines. I 100% disagree and will put the strength of my items against anybody out there if you want to do so. And let me explain why. I understand that this tool, and this tool, when you put it through your leather to create your hole, it's separating the fibers and not removing material. Problem is, when you push through your leather and then you go back and try to stitch, it's a real nightmare. The size of drill bit that I use is a 3/64 bit, which is smaller in radius than this, smaller in radius than this, smaller in radius than this. Hey, guess what? It's smaller in radius than any leather tool that's designed to punch a hole through this. So what does that do for us? That allows us to go through with our bit, or excuse me, our needle a little bit easier. Again, it's not reducing the strength of this. I will put this up against anybody. The criticism usually comes from people that don't want to expand their knowledge. They think for some reason you have to do everything traditional. You can't use modern equipment. Well, you're a silly person. Look at those little baby holes. Can you see them? Here, let me see if I can stick this punch all through there. No? Oh, that's right. Now we've got our holes, we've got our groove for our stitching. So when we put our needle and thread through here, what's going to make it look pretty? Well, after I wet everything or dye, I'm going to go back over with my stitch wheel, and it's going to create a very nice place for our stitch to lay. Now, if you want your stitching to still go kind of diagonal, like so, then after you lay it down, go back over with something like this and just put those shapes back in, and your stitch will follow suit. All right, remember this hairy spot I talked about? Watch what's going to happen. See, I get there and it's going to want to, it's just not going to want to do what I want it to do. So you got to take your time over that spot right there. Otherwise, it's going to cause it to be very fuzzy. You're not going to burnish that spot very easily. I'll be fine now because I got a nice, good, clean burnish cut. Here we are again, so we're going to slow down. Made it through the danger zone. At some point I need to get them stickers off there as well. I don't have a good way of getting those stickers off, guys. I've tried alcohol, I've tried water, I've tried just scraping them off, and it seems like the easiest way to get them off is just scrape them off. And yes, it leaves residue on there, so that way when you go to dye, it looks like shit. Because Tandy's is idiots, and they think it's a good idea to put adhesive on their leather. Now before I move on, I'm actually going to put a little bit of moisture into this belt. I'm going to hydrate it. Water is one of those things that for some reason people avoid when working with leather unless they're going to wet form. Water is leather's friend. I want people to start thinking about it like this. What is leather? Leather is nothing more than your skin. Okay, it's the same thing. So whatever's good for your skin is going to be good for your leather. You like to wash your hands, you like to wash your body. Leather likes water also. It's going to dry. Now, if you put moisture in and allow it to dry, it's going to dry hard because it's going to take all the nutrients and minerals and stuff out of your leather. So when you put water into it, at that time, before it dries up, you're going to start putting those nutrients and everything back into it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Every time I do this, I want to take this belt strap up and slap somebody in the lips. You use contact adhesive to bond your leather together. And we're going to use a similar contact adhesive to stick our stickers on. Common sense is not that common these days, fellas. And ladies. A lot of ladies out there that like making leather. In fact, my mom was the one that first started teaching me leather. A lot of people don't know that. I've actually been working with leather a lot longer than people think. I just didn't get good at it early on. So you can see it's leaving behind all that adhesive. Sometimes it removes better than others, or other times. All right, come here. See that? F you, Tandy. Stop doing that, please. You're ruining people's lives. I've actually had people in the past ask me why I get so upset about that adhesive spot, considering I'm actually going to fold that over and you're never going to see it. Well, I bought a 72-inch belt blank. That means I should have 72 inches of usable leather. Well, I don't have 72 inches of usable leather, depending on what I'm making. Well, let's see here. I have 72 minus 8 inches. All right, that's what I have of usable leather. That's not what I paid for, Tandy. I paid for 72 inches of usable leather. This belt blank is damn near $30. Get your shit together. I wouldn't normally be beveling down, or excuse me, burnishing all the way down here like this. But that's the problem when you're making videos, is oftentimes you have to cater to the camera and do things how you normally wouldn't do. Nice, thick, beefy belt that's just not going to wear out. None of that thin, rinkety-dink crap. Not sure if the lighting is going to show you or not, but now you can see that after we ran that stitch wheel through there, it's made a nice place for our stitch to lay. Now right now this belt is still actually pretty damp. I would say that it's probably still, it's probably 70% dry. But while it's still damp and pliable, that is when you need to start putting your nutrients and everything back in it. Now it's what I use. A lot of you guys see me use Oberhoff's oil, and in fact it's right here. I use a lot of this until recently. Until recently, I actually got the heavy duty HP and realized that they had changed the formula. The original formula smelled delicious, rubbed in great. The new formula smells like crap, doesn't work in as well. I don't know what happened, but I have since stopped using them because of that reason. So I went back to doing what I used to, and what I do is I take a small mixture of beeswax and mix that with coconut oil. And a little bit of beeswax goes a long ways. So you can put a small amount of beeswax mixed in with a larger amount of coconut oil and get a nice paste. Or experiment, get something that sets up a little bit more, that you have to really work in and rub in, give it a little bit more of a waterproof finish, more of that waxy feel. But this stuff here is what I've got, is it's just kind of a medium mixture. But it's all I'm going to do is I'm going to rub this into my hands, and I'm going to start rubbing it into the belt. For some reason, it responds better, and you are able to put these nutrients and everything into your leather way easier when it's damp. Because if you wait, and I'm not playing, guys, please pay attention when I say this. If you allow this belt to dry 100%, it's going to be stiff as a board. I could literally take it and hold it out, and it would stick out straight and then dangle off at the end. And it takes forever to properly break it over to where it's not going to look like crap. Might even crack. You can get your leather so dry, if you don't put the nutrients in it right away, you try to break this over, it will literally crack across there. But if you put the nutrients in, you get a little bit of crack. You've seen, I can't rip it. Maybe you're a grizzly man that can, but I can't do it. And if you don't put a slit in it, I don't care who you are, you better be a damn silverback. You ain't ripping it. One of these belts, tow a vehicle with one of these belts. This will not hinder your top coat in any way. This absorbs into the leather, does not stay on the surface. If you have surface residue, just get a heat gun, heat your leather up, and rub it in. Let it dry. Come back and then apply your top coat. I'm actually going to let this belt probably sit overnight before I apply a top coat. I typically like to wait overnight. You don't need to, but I like to. Got it all rubbed in. I mean, you just work it. Work this thing. And now, we're almost done. I'm going to go ahead and stitch this up, put my ring in. You guys have seen how to do that. You don't need to tag along for that, but I'm going to bring you back when this is all done. And just like that, you now have a belt that you can be proud of. Something that is very thick. Look at that. Yeah. That's going to last you a very long time. In fact, I made my personal one, 5 years ago or something like that. And it's beat up, but no signs of wear and tear on that thing. It's going to last me forever. I can pass it on to my kids, their kids, whatever. Take care of it, it's going to last. You know what won't last? A little bitty thin belt. You know, the leather that you saw me go and rip it apart. Not going to last. So when it comes to making belts or whatever, use good quality material. Take your time. Be happy with your results. Why does something like this cost so much? Because I made this belt in just a little over an hour, so they don't take a long time to make. So why so much? Well, your ring is, like I said, about $3 if you do not have a Tandy's account. The belt blank is almost $30 if you don't have an account. One pack of copper rivets is about $14 to $16 if you don't have an account. A bottle of dye this size is $20 some if you don't, or actually it's about $25 with an account. I think they're close to $30 without. Even the smaller bottles are about $8 to $9. Do the math. Okay, so you can either spend a couple $100 and make your own, or you can come to somebody like me that's already invested in all the tools, all the materials, and everything else. Spend $55 and get yourself a very nice belt. Or you can go to other websites that sell the cheap, flimsy pieces of shit, get you a belt that's going to last no longer than a belt that you buy at Walmart. Plain and simple. Please do not come to my channel and ask me who these websites are and everything else. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to slander somebody else's name. It's up to you to find these websites, do your own research. So, later.